Hello, and welcome to the ninth episode of The Wise and the Woke. We want to talk some basketball today, talk some NBA today. And, I can do that because my Eagles, we sitting pretty 6-2 going into the bye. And 2 games up, I think, or 2.5 games up in our division. And my man Ski Mask Howie, our GM, he making deals to shore up our secondary. So I'm very excited about the second half of this season and our run for another Super Bowl back to back. But I take a step back this weekend. It gives me an opportunity to get reacquainted or get up to speed on what's going on in the NBA. I'm not happy. My team, the Knicks, 2-3 right now, but it's early on. The thing that I really wanted to talk about, though, is the new broadcast of the NBA. It's been taken over by NBC, right? They brought the whole crew over, Shaq and Chuck, on over to NBC. But they did something different, too. They have this new special contributor. It's Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was a great, great basketball player. And, the thing about Mike is about Mike. We saw that with The Last Dance. He had all kind of creative control, all editing powers, and that's what you got. You got a propaganda puff piece. And these new segments there on NBC, they're similar. That's what they're going to be. It's like The Last Dance Part 2. And I say this because that first segment, and they're all going to be pre-recorded. None of these things are going to be live where he can actually be challenged on any of the things he says. And they'll be meticulously curated. He'll have all the answers beforehand. And he'll put out there what he wants you to see, right? He has to protect his image at all time. That was his MO when he was playing. That was his MO when he retired 3 different times. So they set this thing up to talk about load management. So we first need to talk about this whole concept of load management, how it was derived, and how decisions are made, right? So the first thing you need to know is that every team in the NBA has a sports science department. And in the sports science department, they have doctors, they have biomechanists, they have data analysts. They have these guys who are specialists in recovery, right? And they monitor things like your heart rate variability, sleep cycles, muscle output, force plate testing, GPS tracking on every sprint and jump that they do. I mean, this is a science we're talking about. Now, if one of the metrics are off for one of these athletes, they've already created a baseline. Now, if one of the metrics are off, and shows fatigue or maybe asymmetry. Asymmetry is when one part of the body is working harder than the other part of the body, and it could, you could be susceptible to these soft tissue injuries, right? So they bring this information down to the coach, to the management, and the conversation is not, oh, this guy is tired, let him get a break. No, the conversations are more like, yo, look, we saw this in our findings, and, if this guy plays tonight, there's a good possibility his hamstring may explode. So naturally, these guys are multi-million-dollar corporations on 2 legs. You're going to do the prudent thing, and you're going to have the guy sit, right? And that's what this whole concept is about. It's not about, guys are lazy and don't want to play. It's about protecting assets that are worth millions and millions of dollars, right? Nobody likes load management. I was a victim of load management. I was going to visit my son, Marcus, in LA. I said, this is great. I looked at the schedule, Lakers schedule, right? And I saw that LeBron was playing the Pelicans. I wanted to see the greatest basketball player that God ever created, the chosen one. So I said, bet. Got the tickets for the whole fam, right? All excited. Now, as the game was approaching the same week, the Lakers had these games that were going late. They had an overtime, the 2 games before I was scheduled to see them. And before that game, LeBron James played 40 some odd minutes. So he had logged a lot of minutes during that week. And knew, I really knew it was going to happen. People are, oh no, there's 2 games and 2 days in between. He's going to play. And I was praying, I was hoping. But about 45 minutes before the game, I learned that he wasn't going to play. And I was disappointed. So, like I said, nobody likes load management. But I'll be damned if I let Michael Jordan try to lecture anybody on load management. Yo, Mike, you were the OG of load management. Are you kidding me? In 1995, when he came back from his first of his 3 retirements, this dude came back with 17 games left in the season. 17 games. Now, everybody else had played about 60 some odd games, right? But he only played 17. And you're going to tell me that's not load management? Hell yeah, that's load management. And the thing that's really, and you see the double standards in all of this stuff. If LeBron James took off 2 years, just think of that. Just close your eyes for a minute. He took off 2 years for whatever reason and came back with 17 games left in the regular season. What would the assorted haters and NJ side chicks and that, just shut up and dribble crowd, what would they say? They would say that he's trying to steal a championship. They always have these things for LeBron. Everything's negative. But in those same scenarios, it's always positive when it's Michael Jordan. They was all happy to have him back. Nobody thought about the advantages that he had over the rest of the league. He was coming back to a team. I believe they were 34 and 31. They were the thick of the playoff race, right? They were on a playoff team. The year before, they had an MVP candidate in Scottie Pippen. Remember him, Mike? Yeah. So you're the last person who should be talking about load management. You had the audacity to look the screen, to look the camera in the face with those red eyes of his and talk about, oh, I knew somebody up there in the rafters, wanted to see me play. So you don't think that same guy wanted to see you play them 2 years you were trying to figure out how to hit a minor league curveball? What is this, man? This gaslighting that we're getting from this NBC telecast now is irritating. And it's going to happen again. He's going to come out with some pre-recorded, fluff puff piece. And people will eat it up, They'll probably drop a new pair of sneakers in the middle of all of this stuff. But you know what they won't do? They won't talk about the biggest scandal that is going on in the NBA today. They won't ask Mike that, because the biggest scandal that's going on in the NBA today is gambling. Yeah, they popped a few players. They got Chauncey Billups involved in all of that. And supposedly the FBI has been investigating this thing for about 2 years. I would love to hear what Jordan has to say about this gambling scandal, but it won't happen. And it won't happen because, Jordan has been linked to illegal gambling during his playing days forever. Some people speculate that's why he took those 2 years off. That's why he had a sabbatical. I don't know. It's just a conspiracy theory. It's just rumors. The other thing is, he came back with 17 games, right? Dropped 55 on the Knicks in the Garden. First round, he blew out the Bobcats. He's back better than ever, right? Then they ran into a buzzsaw, an expansion team called the Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic, they had Shaq, they had Penny, they had Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson was the guy who stripped Michael Jordan. These people are telling me all the time, they ask the question, who would you want the ball in the hands of in the last, few seconds of a game? And it's always Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan. Well, Michael Jordan did have the ball in his hands in the last few seconds of the game. I think it might have been 16 seconds left. The Bulls were up. All they had to do was hold on to the ball, but no. My man Nick Anderson stripped that ass, right? They threw the ball down and they converted it. Penny hit the little layup. And they went on to win that game. And subsequently that game, which basically, they were big time underdogs. That game, they went on and won the series. But that's the kind of stuff you won't see in The Last Dance, right? You didn't see that part. You didn't see Nick stripping that ass in The Last Dance. All you saw was this propaganda puff piece, and people say, "Oh, it wasn't propaganda. It was a documentary." No, it wasn't. You can't have the main subject in a documentary have all creative control, all editing control. That's not a documentary, dog. That's a propaganda puff piece. And you know how I know? Because that guy Burns, Ken Burns, the world renowned documentarian, yeah, they asked him about The Last Dance. He used different words, he cleaned it up. It said it lacked journalistic integrity, aka it was a propaganda puff piece. And the same thing is going on now. It's like The Last Dance Part 2 is going on with this special contributor segment on NBC. It's the same stuff. It's there just to prop up Jordan and pad his legacy. I'm sure they'll drop some new, retro sneaker in there in between these segments. And this is what it's done. It's not to give anybody any insight into this great ball player. No. It's really just designed to sell more stuff. And if you're wise and you're woke and you listen with the third ear, you can easily see these things. Right? Now, if you want to be a special contributor, right? If you really want us to get some insight into this guy, why don't you talk about the number one scandal that is rocking the NBA today? And that's gambling. Illegal gambling. It's the biggest scandal since like the 70s when it was like the cocaine league, like they had real live crackheads on the court. It's that big. But you won't hear Michael Jordan talking about it. There was this other thing that ticked me off in this special contributor segment. They started talking about the flu game. And here's another thing of padding a legacy and propping this dude up. And because I know who had the original flu game and actually had the flu, and that was Walter Payton. In December of 76, I believe it was, Walter Payton ran for like 275 yards. This man was vomiting before the game. It's a violent sport. He carried the ball over 40 times with the flu. And 20 years later, Jordan, they said he had the flu, right? And he goes out there and scores 38 points and is the driving force in the win. And he slumped all over Scottie Pippen, looking like he'd been through war. In this non-contact sport, he's acting like, he ran the rock 40 times. No, he didn't. And he didn't even have the flu. He had a bad tummy ache. We learned from his own propaganda that it was a pizza that he ate late night and made him sick. And I'm not diminishing the performance he had in the playoff. The guy was great. And it was great performance under duress. But it wasn't the flu game. The flu game happened with Walter Sweetness Payton. You start calling it the bad tummy ache game or the bad pizza game. Stop calling it the flu game. Somehow these people, these MJ side chicks, these assorted haters, and all these people, right? They love to hijack stuff or co-op stuff and just give it to Jordan, right? Just like the GOAT, the moniker the GOAT. Well, how you going to take the GOAT from Muhammad Ali and give it to Jordan? They gave it to Jordan. He didn't even win a championship yet. But he's the GOAT. Yeah, okay. Whatever. But these are the things that kind of tick me off. And the thing about sports journalism is it's just so shoddy. It really is. And I must say, this whole load management thing, the media, the mainstream media, these people, they're part of it. All these guys. And some fans too, because they've created this ring culture. If you don't have a ring, you suck. You're a loser, right? So The players, they naturally adapt. They don't want to be called losers, right? So what did they do? They'll acquiesce. When they come down, when they say, hey, you need to take a day off, they don't fight it. Why should they? Right? They're trying to preserve themselves to get to the playoffs, be in the best position to play at a high level, right? And go on to try to win one of these championships. Because if you don't win a championship, you're a loser. Ask Chuck. Charles Barkley, he gets joked damn near every telecast because he doesn't have a ring. All these great, great players who don't have a ring, somehow, some way, they're kicked aside, right? Because they don't have a ring. So indirectly, the media, some fans, these casuals who never played before, but they're going to tell you you're no good because you didn't win a championship, right? This is what this league has become. Just this toxic environment of old generation versus new generation, and they trotting these old retired guys. I don't care how great Jordan was. Don't trot him out there and not talk about the pressing issues of the day. That's weak. That's not journalism. That's legacy padding. Straight up.